Tales of Ugetsu. Ueda Akinari. The Chrysanthemum Promise. Willows, which sprout lush green leaves in the spring, should not be planted in the garden of one's house. In the same way, one should not associate with frivolous people. This is because willows grow lush and green quickly, but when the wind that heralds early autumn blows, they cannot withstand the wind and fall off in an instant. Frivolous people are easy to associate with, but at the same time, they are quick to lose contact and leave. Yet willows still turn their leaves green with new leaves every spring, but once a frivolous person loses contact with you, he will never come back to visit you again. In the inn of Kako in Harima Province, there was a scholar named Takebe Samon. He lived a simple life of austerity, and other than the books he kept close to him day and night, he said that the various tools around him were a bother. He had an aged mother. His mother was a wise mother with strong principles, not inferior to the famous Chinese woman Mobua, and always worked spinning thread and weaving cloth, helping Samon achieve his ambitions. He also had a younger sister who lived with the Seo clan in the same village. The Seo family was very wealthy, but they were fond of the intelligent nature of Takebe and his son, and after they married the daughter of the family and became relatives, they would often send them gifts under various pretexts to help support the mother and son, but Samon said, "I can't rely on others for my living," and never accepted a single gift. One day, when Samon was visiting a certain man in the same village, and was enjoying a chat about all sorts of things, past and present, he heard a painful groan coming from the next room, separated by a single wall. He felt very sorry for the person and asked the owner what it was, and the owner replied, "He seems to be from a country far to the west of here. He had been delayed by his entourage and asked for a place to stay for the night. He had the presence of a truly fine samurai, and seemed a man of great character, so I offered to let him stay with me. However, that night he developed a terrible fever, and since then he has been unable to get up or lie down on his own. So feeling sorry for him, I have allowed him to stay with me for 3 or 4 days, until today. However, I am not sure which country he is from, and I am perplexed and realize that I have made a terrible mistake." Hearing this, Samon said, "That's a pity. I understand your husband is worried, but it must be especially hard on the sick person, who is suffering from this disease while traveling and has no friends. I would like to know how he is." He tried to get up, but the master stopped him, saying, "I have heard that epidemics harm people, so I don't let my family go there. You too should not go near it and make yourself ill." Samon laughed and said, "As the Analects of Confucius say, life and death exist, and a person's lifespan is determined by the will of heaven. If it weren't for the will of heaven, no disease could be transmitted. But to say that epidemics harm people is what fools and common people say, and we don't believe it." He pushed open the door and entered the next room to see the sick person. Just as the owner had said, he was a man of good descent, but he appeared to be seriously ill, with a yellow face, black skin, and a gaunt figure lying painfully on an old futon. When he saw Samon enter, he looked at him fondly and said, "Please give me lots of hot water." Samon approached him and encouraged him, saying, "You don't have to worry anymore. I will definitely save you." He then consulted with the owner and chose medicine, came up with his own prescription, made a decoction himself, and had him drink it, while also cooking porridge and feeding it to him. He cared for him with the utmost kindness, as if he were a brother, and was so kind that he could not afford to waste even a moment. The samurai shed tears of gratitude for Samon's kindness in nursing him, saying, "I have no words to thank you for showing such kindness to me, a complete stranger. Even if I die like this, I will definitely repay your kindness." Samon tried to dissuade him, encouraging him, saying, "You are a weak-willed person. Most epidemics have a period of illness. Once that period is over, there is no danger to life. I will visit you every day and take care of you." Samon promised sincerely and nursed him to this end with all his heart, so gradually his illness improved and he began to feel refreshed. So one day, the sick man politely thanked the owner of the house and, respecting Samon's virtuous character, asked him what his occupation was and told him about his own life as if it were a gift. "I am originally from Matsue in the province of Izumo, and my name is Akana Samon. As I was somewhat knowledgeable in books on military science, Enya Kamonosuk, the lord of Tomita Castle, was in a position to study military science under me as his teacher. However, due to some circumstances, I was selected as a secret emissary by Sasaki Ujitsuna of Omi. While I was staying in Sasaki's mansion in Omi, Amako Tsunehisa, the former lord of Tomita Castle in my hometown, won over Yamanaka Shikanosuke and his gang, and on New Year's Eve in December of the 17th year of Banmei, he launched a surprise attack and took over the castle, killing Kamonosuke. Originally, Izumo Province was the territory of the Sasaki clan, and the Shioya clan was its magistrate, so I advised Ugetsuna to support the powerful clans of Mizawa and Mitoya and defeat and destroy Tsunehisa. But Ugetsuna looked like a brave general on the outside, but was a cowardly and foolish general at heart. So not only did he not carry out my advice, but he even made me stay at his mansion. However, I decided not to stay long in a place where there was no reason to be, so I sneaked out by myself and tried to return to my hometown, but I fell ill and unexpectedly caused you so much trouble, and I feel that you have been a great kindness to me. I will repay you for the rest of my life. Samon said. As it says in Mencius, it is human nature not to see others suffer misfortune and to simply turn a blind eye to their deaths. So what I have done is only natural, and there is no need for me to receive such polite words of thanks at this point. Please stay here a little longer and recuperate, he said. Relying on Samon's sincere words, Akana stayed for a few more days, and as the days passed, his health returned to almost normal. During these few days, Samon felt that he had found a good friend and spent many days and nights in their company, talking about various things. Akana would talk modestly about the various schools of thought that Samon specialized in, but his questions and understanding were not ordinary, and he was intelligent. In particular, when it came to his specialty, tactical theory, he showed a convincing and excellent view, so that they were in accord with each other, and they were impressed and pleased, and finally made a pact to be blood brothers. As Akana was 5 years older than Samon, he paid him the respects of an older brother and said to him, "I lost my parents when I was young, so I have no parents. Now that we are blood brothers, your elderly mother is actually my mother, so I would like to have the honor of meeting you as your mother once again. I wonder if you will understand my feelings and accept this childish and foolish sentiment." Hearing this, Samon was very happy and said, "My mother is always saddened by my loneliness. If she hears your sincere words, she will be happy and her life will be extended." He then immediately took Akana home with him. His aged mother welcomed him with joy and said, "My son has no talent, and his studies are not in keeping with the times, so he has lost his chance to go out into the world. Please do not abandon him, but guide him as his older brother." Akana bowed respectfully and said, "A man should value righteousness. Fame and fame are not important. I am fortunate to have received the love of my mother and the respect of Samon as an older brother. What more could I wish for?" He was deeply moved and stayed at the house for a while again. The cherry blossoms of Ono, which seemed to have bloomed yesterday or today, have already fallen, and the waves of the sea blowing in the cool wind clearly show the arrival of early summer. One day, Akana said to Samon and his son, "I left Omi because I wanted to see what Izumo was like, so I will go down to my country for now and come back soon. After that, even though I am poor, I will do my best to take good care of my mother and repay her kindness. Please give me some time off." Samon asked, "Then, when will you be returning, brother?" Akana replied, "Time flies. At the latest, it will be before autumn." Samon added, "What date should we set for autumn? Please decide clearly." Akana replied, "Let's set it as the 9th day of the September month, the day I return bearing the Koyo festival." Samon reassured him, "Brother, please do not mistake this date. On that day, I will be waiting for you with a single branch of chrysanthemums and a small amount of sake to show my gratitude." They made a sincere promise to each other, and, regretting their difficult separation, Akana returned to the west. The days passed quickly. The berries on the lower branches of the jujube tree turned red. The wild chrysanthemums on the hedges bloomed beautifully, and it was now September. On the appointed 9th day, Samon got up earlier than usual, cleaned the hut, bought 2 or 3 branches of yellow and white chrysanthemums, a small bottle, and began preparing food and sake with his meager wallet. Seeing this, his old mother said, "Izumo Province is at the end of the Sanin Road, and I have heard that it is 100 ri away from here, so it is difficult to say for sure that he will be seen today. You seem to have made various preparations, but it will not be too late to start preparing after seeing him." Samon replied, "Akana is a warrior who values integrity, so he never breaks his promise. It would be embarrassing to start preparing in a hurry after seeing him, as I do not know what he will think." He then bought some fine sake, cooked some fresh fish, and prepared it in the kitchen, waiting for Akana to arrive. The sky was clear that day, with not a single cloud as far as the eye could see, and there were many travelers on the road. When he heard them talk, he would say things like, "Today is the day that so-and-so is entering the capital, and the weather is fine. which is favorable. This is an omen of good profits this coming autumn, as he passed by. Another samurai in his 50s said to his companion, a similarly dressed samurai in his 20s, "The sea is so calm. If we had boarded a ship from Akashi, we would have been sailing this early in the morning for the port of Ashimoto by now." The young man is being timid and wasting even more money. The young samurai replied, "When my lord came to Kyoto, he crossed the sea from Shodoshima to Murozu. But the sea was rough and he suffered terribly, and I remember what he said about how those who accompanied him at the time. I think anyone would be afraid to cross around here. You're so angry, aren't you? When the fish reach the bridge, we'll treat you to some soba noodles," and soothed him as he passed by. The driver, annoyed, shouted, "You stale horse! Can't you even open your eyes? Walk steadily." He roughly pushed back the pack saddle, which had tilted when the horse stumbled, and hurried off. Before long, it was well past noon, but the person he was waiting for had still not arrived. As the sun sank in the west, the steps of the travelers hurrying to their lodgings for the night became even busier. Samon's eyes were drawn to the outside, wondering if Akana was coming yet, and his mind was wandering, as if he was drunk. His aged mother called out to Samon and said, "Even if Akana's heart has changed like the autumn sky and he has forgotten his promise to you, the day when the chrysanthemums will be in full bloom as you promised to come, and the day when your friendship and hospitality will be so kind, will not be limited to today. As long as you are sincere enough to return to Akana, even if time is delayed and it is time for a drizzle, what will I have to resent? Go home, lie down, and wait for tomorrow." Samon was unable to resist, so he calmed his mother down and went to bed first. Thinking that Akana might be coming, he went outside once more. The light of the stars in the Milky Way was faint and weak in the sky, and the moon was shining only on him, making him feel lonely. He could also hear the distant barking of the guard dog guarding the house, which sounded close by, penetrating the silence of the night, and the sound of the waves crashing on Takasago Bay sounded high and close, as if they were coming right up to him. Eventually, the moon went behind the edge of the mountains and the light became dim, so he gave up and was about to close the door and go into the house when suddenly something caught his eye. He saw a human figure in a vague black shadow, and as the wind blew it came towards him. Suspicious, he squinted his eyes and saw that it was Akana Samon. Samon was so excited, he said, "I have been waiting for you to come since early this morning. I am so happy that you have come as you promised. Please come in," but Akana just nodded and said nothing. Samon led Akana to the front of the room by the window and made him sit upright. He said, "Your brother came late, so my mother got tired of waiting. She went to bed early, saying, 'You will come tomorrow. I will wake you up.'" But Akana shook his head again, refusing to open his mouth. Samon then said, "You must be tired both physically and mentally after traveling many days and nights. Please have a bite and get some good sleep." He warmed the sake and served some fish and snacks, but Akana covered his face with his sleeve, as if he hated the smell and wanted to avoid them. Samon continued, "I'm a poor cook, so I can't treat you to a proper meal, but I put my heart into this. Please don't despise it." Still, Akana did not reply, but let out a long sigh. But after a while he finally spoke. "Why should I be reluctant to decline your kind hospitality? I have no words to deceive you, so I will tell you the truth. Do not be suspicious or surprised. In truth, I am no longer a human being. I am an unclean spirit of the dead who has appeared in human form." Samon was extremely surprised and said, "Brother, why do you say such strange things? I do not for a moment believe that this is a dream." Akana said, "After parting ways with you, I returned to my hometown, but most of the people there were eager to bow down to the power of Amigo Tsunehisa, and no longer looked back on the patronage of my former lord, the Shioya clan. So I went to visit my cousin, Akana Tonji, who was in Tomita Castle, and he explained the pros and cons and introduced me to Tsunehisa. On the surface, I appeared to follow my cousin's words and met Tsunehisa, and after that, I observed what Tsunehisa did carefully and found that he was certainly a man of great strategy comparable to anyone else, and that he trained his soldiers well, but he was too suspicious when using wise men, and as a result, he had no vassals who were willing to sacrifice their lives to become my lord's confidant. I thought it was pointless to stay in a place like this for long, so I left after reconciling my promise to meet you again on the auspicious day of the Chrysanthemum Festival. But when I tried to do so, Tsunehisa seemed dissatisfied and unhappy, and ordered Tonji to keep me under house arrest so that I would not leave the castle, which finally led to today. If I were to break today's promise, what would you think of me?" I was worried that you would think me a liar and untrustworthy. I thought about it in various ways, but I could not find a way to escape. There is an ancient saying that goes, "A person cannot travel 1,000 miles in a day, but the soul can travel 1,000 miles in a day." Remembering this truth, I committed suicide, and tonight, riding on the wind, I have come all the way to the Chrysanthemum engagement. Please understand my feelings and sympathize with me, he said, and then tears flowed uncontrollably. This is now our final goodbye. Please be good to your mother, he said, and as he stood up, he disappeared from sight as if he had been wiped away. Samon hurriedly tried to stop him, but the dark wind blinded him, and he lost track of where he had gone. He tripped over something and fell face down, crying loudly as he did so. His mother woke up at the sound of his voice, and in surprise she got up and came to where Samon was, where she found many sake cups and plates of snacks lined up around the dining area, and Samon lying there among them. She quickly picked him up and asked him what was wrong, but he just continued to cry quietly without making a sound, and did not say a word. His mother then reprimanded him again, saying, "If you resent your brother Akana for breaking his promise, then if Akana comes tomorrow, you will not have anything to say to him." Are you really so childish and unable to understand the meaning of things? Samon finally opened her mouth and replied, "My brother has come all the way tonight to fulfill his promise of the chrysanthemum. We welcomed him with the food and drink we had prepared, but he repeatedly declined, saying, 'For this and that reason I have broken my promise, so I committed suicide and my soul has become numb, and now my soul has traveled 100 miles.' And so he disappeared from sight. And so I have woken you up while you were sleeping. Please forgive me." She began to cry again, so her old mother said, "There is a proverb that says that those who are imprisoned even in their dreams will see their release, and those who are thirsty will drink water in their dreams. You are just like those people, and you have been waiting so long that you have dreamed about it. Please calm down," she said, but Samon shook his head and said, "It is no idle nonsense like a dream. My brother is really here," and he broke down again, crying loudly. Hearing this, the aged mother no longer doubted him, and mother and son called out to each other, cried out, and spent the rest of the night crying. The next day, Samon knelt down in front of his mother and begged, "I have devoted myself to learning and literature since my childhood, but I have never been known for being loyal to my country, and I have never been able to show my filial piety to my parents. I have just lived in this world meaninglessly. My brother Akana died with his loyalty throughout his life. As his younger brother, I have come down to this place day and night, hoping to repay his faithfulness with faithfulness. I would like to ask you to take good care of yourself and leave me alone for a while." The old mother replied, "My son, even if you go to Izumo, please come back soon and put this old man at ease. Please stay there for a long time and do not make today's farewell a permanent farewell." Samon said, "As the ancients say, a person's life is fleeting, like bubbles floating on water, and it never fades away. But I will return as soon as I can." He wiped away his tears of farewell and left his house. He immediately went to Seo-san's house and asked him to take good care of his aged mother. He then headed for Izumo, but on the way he could only think of Akana. He did not eat even though he was hungry, and did not think about clothing even though it was cold. He dozed off, and in his dreams he saw Akana and cried until he arrived at the castle town of Tomita 10 days later. He went straight to Akana Tonji's house, gave his name and asked to be shown around. Tonji greeted him and showed him into the living room. "Unless you were informed by the wild goose, how could you have known about Somon's death?" "I don't understand," he asked in confusion, repeatedly asking about the situation. A samurai should not worry about his own wealth and success or the rise and fall of his life. He should value only integrity. My brother Somon valued a promise he had made and kept it, and even after his death traveled 100 miles to be with me. I have come down to this place day and night wanting to repay his integrity with integrity. I would like to ask you about something I have learned in my daily life. I would appreciate a clear answer. Long ago, when the Prime Minister of the state of Wei, Gongshusa, fell seriously ill on his bed, the King of Wei paid him a warm visit and, taking Gongshusa's hand, said, "If anything should ever happen to him, to whom should I make the Prime Minister and entrust the affairs of state to? Please leave me some instructions." The Prime Minister Shusa said, "Though Xiangyang is still young, he has rare talent. If His Majesty does not intend to use him, he should not be sent out of the country, even if it means killing him. If he is sent to another country, it will surely bring disaster to the country in the future." After the king left, Shusa secretly called Xiangyang and said, I recommended you to His Majesty, but since His Majesty does not seem to accept my recommendation, I have advised you to kill yourself if you do not want to promote him. This is the way of a ruler and his subjects, putting the ruler first and his subjects last, and it is my will. You should flee to another country as soon as possible and escape this danger. Why don't you compare this to the case of you and Samon? Tanji was ashamed, so he just bowed his head and said nothing. Samon leaned forward even further and said, "My brother Samon," thinking of the kindness he owed to Shioya and refusing to serve the Amago clan, was a true samurai. You abandoned your former lord, Shioya, to become a vassal of the Amago clan, but this is a breach of the honor of a samurai. My brother respected the promise of the chrysanthemum and risked his life to travel a long distance, but this is the height of honor. You have now fawned on the Amago clan, tormenting Samon, your blood relative, and causing him to die in this untimely manner. But this is an act that shows a lack of honor as a friend. Even if Tsunehisa had forced my brother to stay, but even if he was accused of being a samurai, if he had thought of their long-term friendship, he should have secretly shown the same loyalty that Shuza had shown to Xiangyang, but instead he was only concerned with personal success and gain, and had no samurai dignity. This may be the family style of the Amago clan in general. This is why my brother did not want to stay in this country. I have come all the way here for the sake of loyalty. You will come here again and bring a long-lasting stain on your name for injustice." Without further ado, he slashed at him, and with one blow, Tanji fell to the ground. Hearing this, the retainers were making a commotion, and while Samon was quick to flee the scene, he disappeared. Amago Tsunehisa heard about this incident, but was deeply moved by the loyal relationship between Samon and Samon, his blood brothers, and did not force him to follow Samon. "Ah, they say you should not get involved with frivolous people, and that is absolutely true.